Hello and welcome guys, Jake here for redlinemotorsport.co.uk. You've joined us here today for some Assetto Corsa Competizione. You'll be watching the Porsche 911 Cup cars. This is round 3 at the beautiful track of Zolder. We've just got a minute and a half left of practice before we go into a 30-minute qualifying session, followed by a 60-minute race. You have myself here, Jake, commentating. Alongside I have Ryan today here. Hello Ryan.
Alright Jake, it's great to be back for the Porsche Cup, and it's nice of you to join me here this weekend on what looks to be a very dark practice session so far. We've had rain for a lot of the past few weeks leading up to this race, so might have a bit of an exciting qualifying race on our hand.
Yeah, I bet the guys will be happy to see some dry conditions for a change. So you've obviously been along for the first couple of races so far. This has been my first one, so you've had the knowledge and experience of what these guys have been up to so far. How's the racing been from your point of view?
Racing's been very good. From what we've seen, Barcelona was very entertaining. A lot of stuff happening there. Misano was very different, with the championship leader going off on the first lap and having to fight back through most of the race to come back and win. So yeah, the racing's been good. It's been clean for the most part, not that many incidents for the stewards to look into after the races. So yeah, it's been quite good and a joy to watch, really.
Oh, that's great to hear. Hopefully we'll see more of the same today, especially with a circuit like Zolder. It's quite a narrow circuit in places, some fast chicanes, definitely some good few overtaking opportunities, but not necessarily one of the easiest tracks to overtake on. So interesting to see how what the guys make of it today. So could you give us a rundown of the championship so far, see who's leading the way?
Yes, I can. So leading the championship, we have Giacomo Proetti. He won both the races in Barcelona and Misano. Currently sits 6th at the end of practice there. So he's on 62 points. Second place is Daniele Flores with 57. Alessandro Porta with 54 is in 3rd. Then Stefano Chinappi in 4th with 51. Christopher Wolfgruber with 50 is in 5th place. Zelkio Mazzo has 44 points, he's in 6th place. Stefan Miller with 43 in 7th, he's tied with Sebastian Zayak on 43 points. 9th is Mike Kowalski with 42, and 10th is Mirko Pomodori with 40 points. The rest of the championship standings without points down in order is David Vinuesa, Radek Majowski, Stephen DeVos, Steve Banks, Giorgio Raimondi, William Puntorieri, Antonio Seredi, William Mazzolini, Kamil Zawadski, Jan Vopakta, Michael Deruda, Tarek and Jeremy, Sergio Suardi, Salvatore Andrea Amato, and David Ferreira of the regulars, although I do believe we have a couple of new drivers here tonight.
That's always good to see, thank you for that, pal. Good to see that it's still nice and tight across the board, especially up the top as well. You know, we don't want to see anyone run off with it too much. As you'd mentioned earlier, it looks like the rain is back for these guys during qualifying. So that's going to be an extra challenge for them, especially since they've been practicing in the dry conditions. We were hoping for that to stay dry for qualifying, but you know, you've got to take what comes and you've got to make the most of it.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's been dry in the first 2 races so far this season of Barcelona and Misano. So coming into the wet now is going to offer a few different challenges. Like I said, it has been raining for a lot of the week building up to this race. So I don't think anyone would have been focusing on a dry setup for today. But yeah, the rain has arrived in qualifying. Whether it will continue over into the race is another thing that we don't quite know. But considering the fact that the qualifying and the race take place on the same day, only an hour apart from each other, it's fair to say that it will probably be wet for the race. But will it get much worse? We don't know just yet.
Yeah, that'll be something they'll have to just contend with. Like you say, they've done a fair bit of practice with it during the week, as you said. So, like you said, they may be expecting it. So hopefully they'll have put some thought towards that with regards to setups and whatnot. So you see a few of them were just on the outlap already having a bit of struggle with the grip levels already. Probably got to spend a little bit of time bringing the car in, getting the tyres up to temperature for their first few hot laps, as they're just started now in the qualifying session. It's a half an hour qualifying session, as I said again, so plenty of time for the guys to get a feel of conditions and start to push some faster lap times. What sort of track temperature do we have at the minute? Can you see?
Yes, we have about 19 degrees track temperature at the moment, so it's not too cold out there. It's quite a bit warmer than I would usually expect for a
especially for the conditions.
wet track.
Yeah.
Yeah, the track is listed as damp, so it's not fully wet. There are people with their wipers on there, so it is definitely wet enough to have the wet mode switch on these cars. We have 14km/h wind facing towards the northeast, but looking at the forecast as well, it looks to be rain for at least the next half an hour.
So it might be quite important for these guys actually to get a couple of banker laps in quite early then. If the rain's going to continue on, we could find the conditions actually worsen as the qualifying session gets on. So these first few laps might be quite important.
Yeah, and it's just nice to see there. Fabian is in the chat tonight. Obviously, Fabian not able to join us for the coverage here tonight. Nice to see you in the chat, Fabian. It was one of the new drivers who was top in practice, Patinella, with a 1:31.5. That was in dry conditions though, so it's going to be interesting to see what they can do now out in the wet in qualifying.
Yeah, this will really sort the men amongst the boys with conditions like this. You've got to be ready for this sort of thing, and it takes quite a lot of control to sort of not go too aggressive in these conditions, especially with the rear engine cars that we've got out there today. They can't be the easiest even in dry conditions, let alone with a greasy track surface as well. A quick shout out to Fabian. Hi Fabian, we're missing you here today on the commentary team. Hopefully I can fill those big boots of yours. Hopefully have a good race to commentate on, give us plenty to watch and plenty for you guys to enjoy. Now, as you see, your championship leader, Mr. Proetti, is already up on the top spot with a 1:39.36.2. So, about 4 seconds off what the guys were doing during practice, down to those wet conditions, of course. Now, it's whether they'll be able to improve on that a lot, as the track possibly could get worse throughout qualifying. We'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, you were talking about how difficult these cars are to control. I mean, even in the dry, they're not the easiest. They have no traction control at all, so you know you can't like with a normal GT3 car, you can play around with the traction and the ABS. These cars don't have that. I believe they do still have ABS settings, but not traction control. So that does mean that when you get wet conditions like these, they are so much more difficult to drive because you don't have those built-in assists in the car to help you. So yeah, like you said, it really is going to separate the men from the boys tonight. But Giacomo Peretti with the 1:36.2, looking good at the moment. He was held up on that lap, so he should be able to go faster than that. Very much like quite a few of the other people we've seen here. And getting held up at Zolder in qualifying is quite common. You mentioned earlier it's a small, tight track, and overtaking opportunities are not plentiful around this circuit, so you have to take them whenever they come around.
Yeah, that's true. You've got to be a bit of an opportunistic sometimes around here. You've got the hairpin, it's always a good spot for overtaking, and through the first couple of corners sometimes you can pull a move Sometimes a bit of an inside-out move. Sometimes if you can get the run off the last turn, it's always an opportunity in the turn 1, but it's quite wide around turns 1, 2, narrows a bit into 3. There's always an opportunity around there, and sometimes you've got to take advantage of others battling as well. And that's I think that'll be key for today, is some opportunistic passes. Because like I say, through the tight section, through the chicanes, there's not a lot of room to make a nice clean pass. So hopefully these guys will do a good job of it, especially the wet conditions. If we can get a nice clean outlap, the guys can get settled into their rhythm. It'll be a straight shout, no pit stops. So it should be good fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and Fabian just mentioning there in the chat that I don't think our stream titles are quite correct, so those might need to be edited whenever you get the chance.
Thank you for that, Fabian.
But yeah, you were mentioning about this track and how tricky it is for overtakes. It's not really something that we've mentioned at a couple of other circuits like Barcelona and Misano, that overtaking opportunities aren't plentiful, and one of the things we've seen in this series more than others is that the races are often decided by mistakes, because it's so competitive. Some of the guys up at the top are so quick here that you can't really afford to make many mistakes.
No, you're right there. You say a small mistake, you're going to drop quite a fair few positions, and it's going to be quite hard to actually make those positions back. It's going to take quite a while. Yeah, unfortunately, don't know if I'm actually able to change the title currently. How far out is it? Are we aware? Is it just a race off?
I think looking at the title at the moment, it says we are doing the Touring Classics 2020 Race 2 at Sachsenring, and I think we are a bit far from Germany at the moment.
That is quite far off, guys. We do apologise for that. Obviously, as you can see, it is ACC, and these are 911 Porsche Cup cars. So it's a shame that there's a little bit of an error there on my part. I do apologise for that, guys. Put it down to inexperience. The new systems will be running today.
It's all right. Well, while you look into that, Fabian did mention that although he's missing the commentary, he is looking forward to the 6-hour event, and that does give us an excellent opportunity to talk about the 6-hour event. It means that we can talk about the 6 hour of Bathurst event that we're going to have in ACC. We're hoping that it's going to be Bathurst, because it very much depends on the Intercontinental DLC being released for ACC. But if it isn't, we will be doing a 6-hour race at Nürburgring instead. So it'll be Bathurst or Nürburgring, depending on how things progress with the Intercontinental DLC. But we do have a 6-hour race coming up within the next couple of weeks in ACC, and it's going to be exciting, especially if it goes as well as the 3-hour one we had at Zolder just before Christmas.
Yeah, that's going to be a real challenge for the guys. Let alone doing 3 hours, 6 hours. Yeah, that's going to be. You put a lot of practice in for that. That's going to be something you're really going to need to learn to pace yourself. You can't go 100% for that amount of time. I assume there'll be teams involved in the 6-hour event.
Yeah, we had quite a few teams involved. A few different esports teams that were involved coming along, and then a lot of people entering as privateer entries with teams of drivers. It was quite nice to see, and the racing was fairly good. It was also the first opportunity in which we could try out live stewarding in an endurance race, and that went pretty well. A lot of people liked the live stewarding that we had, and we do plan to continue that for the 6-hour race as well.
So these 2 driver teams, or is it possible to do more than that?
It is 2, 3, or 4 driver teams. It's completely up to the teams as to how many people they want to drive, or they want to put in the car. And depending on how many drivers are in your team depends on your maximum stint time. So
I was about to say, is there a set amount of time between drivers? So that all depends on the amount in your team. Yeah, you can't think you'd want to do more than 2 in one stint.
Yeah, so we do have maximum stint times, as we did in the Zolder race. So those will be coming back as well. But we are all dearly hoping that the race can be run at Bathurst, because there's been a lot of excitement about the Intercontinental DLC with Bathurst, Suzuka, Laguna Seca, and even Kielami making a return in sim racing, which is a track that has been sorely missed from top level racing series for a long time now.
Yeah, that's a name we haven't heard on the track list for some time, for sure. It'd be good just to get Bathurst in time for that, because that would be a great event to see them do the 6 hour on. With a track such as Bathurst, not a very what's the correct word? Forgiving track, but very, very exciting to drive and to commentate on, I guess.
Yeah, it's a very punishing circuit, but it doesn't take away from the spectacle of racing on it. It's probably one of the greatest tracks in the world to go and watch GT racing at. And I don't say that lightly either. There are a lot of very good tracks that GT cars go to across many different series, but Bathurst is one of the top tracks that they visit. And if you do ever get the chance to go and watch the Bathurst 12 hour, it is well worth going to see.
It's a bucket list event, really, that one, isn't it?
So whilst we've been rambling on about all sorts of things happening within the community, pole position has actually been taken away from Giacomo Peretti. It is now Alessandro Porta who leads the way with a 136.5. So that's actually looking down the grid. Yes, looking down the grid, Giacomo Peretti is no longer in the session.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I'm still broadcasting tool, at least is still his time is a 136.2, which would still have the lead. But yeah, you're correct. He's no longer there now. I didn't see anything for a disqualification, which would put him down the bottom. So this could be a real shame if he's not around to continue on.
Fabian just letting us know there that he has some connection issues, so maybe something's been said in the Discord that Fabian has picked up on. But yeah, connection issues, unfortunately. We have seen that strike a few people, not just in the Porsche Cup, but that has happened in the Friday Championship. Speaking of Fabian, I'm sure he won't enjoy me reminding him that he got disconnected just before the race at Brands Hatch. Quite unfortunately, so
he'll thank you for that one later, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure he will in 2 weeks' time, when we do the commentary again, if he is going to be doing it in 2 weeks' time. But yeah, it's unfortunate. You know, you never like to see people disconnect.
No. But it happens,
race.
doesn't it? Unfortunately, sometimes. Unfortunately, always at the worst of times as well. Thankfully for Peretti, there is time for him to get back in, to get another lap in. As Porter has actually managed to improve his time on his last lap, now down to 136.1, so that does beat Peretti's original time, 136.2. So they're still able to put in some fairly quick times now, even though we're just gone past the halfway point in the session, so the rain doesn't seem to be actually getting any worse for these guys.
Doesn't seem to be getting any worse, but the track condition has now changed from damp to wet, so it has got wetter.
Okay, it has. And they're still managing to find time, I guess, as they get familiar with the actual grip conditions.
Well, my theory would be, that maybe in the damp part of the track, obviously these cars we mentioned before don't have traction control. if the track is damp, you know, does going with dry or wet tyres not really yield any advantage? And with the track getting maybe slightly wetter, the wet tyres actually have an effect at that point. So
yeah, that crossover actually when the wets come into their own. So definitely seen from experience, you can run the dries on a damp track. It's usually the temperature that's more of an issue. And then likewise, running wets on a drying track can actually yield more grip until they go over that sort of temperature threshold where they just start to slide around. Like you say, it's just picking the right tyre at the right time. You can yield that magical time. Also, a bit of risk reward through the fast chicanes. Always a few tenths extra to be found there, especially towards the end of the session, as guys feel like they're going to throw everything down on the board and see what they can come up with.
Yeah, looking at how it's been going, though, we have just under 12 minutes left of qualifying here, but I don't think we'll be seeing anyone go into the 35s here in qualifying. Would be quite a good lap around here in the wet to see a 1:35, but that doesn't take anything away from Alessandro Porta's 1:36.1. It's still a very quick time around here in the wet.
Yeah, it is indeed. That's great car control to manage those times around here, putting himself a good sort of 3.5 tenths above of Antonio in second place, and a couple of tenths further ahead than Salvo. That's your top three currently. Quite a few of them about half of them in the pits currently. Going to jump on board with some of these guys and see what sort of conditions they're managing them. As we jump on board with Antonio. So even the crest here that you would usually think is quite easily flat out in the dry, I'm sure they're just slightly feathering the throttle, make sure they've got a nice straight neutral line over that crest, because even in the dry you'll find the car does start to drift just on the crest of that hill there. See how much he's feathering the throttle, just struggling with the rear end grip there.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite the technical circuit, Zolder. It does demand quite a bit of concentration. A lot of the corners, and the chicanes especially, can be quite easy to lose the rear end of the car, especially on cars like these with no traction assist enabled. So yeah, you have to be careful coming out of the corners here. You know, make sure that you're quite smooth on the throttle, and don't spin the rear tyres too much.
Yeah, as Antonio's shoe there just slightly went onto the curbs and just instantly lost control of the rear end. Those curbs, he's staying well clear of them in these conditions, though. Can't think it would help him if he had the window wiper on. I'm sure he couldn't have had good visibility without that. There could have just been a slight bug from our side, not showing he had the wipers on. I'm sure that would give him a little bit better visibility with the window wipers on.
Yeah, it has been something that was debated at Monza in the Season 2 Championship that we have running on Fridays at the moment. There was the talk of, at Monza, some people not using the cockpit cam instead of, they were using bonnet cam instead. And I think the theory was that the people that were using bonnet cam were those that didn't have their wipers on. I don't entirely know if that was the case, because I think even at Monza specifically, you could still see out of the windscreen without the wipers on. Visibility wasn't that poor, but yeah, sometimes it could come down to what perspective people are using.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, from what I saw inside there on his car, their visibility was very, very poor without the window wiper going. Now that could have been a bug. That could have been what you said. That's a very good point, because they wouldn't need to have the wipers on. Obviously, that's a point for admins and others to discuss. One of those many subjects that needs much debate. But for now, that's a status quo. Use what you feel most comfortable with. And it doesn't make the car any quicker, so all fair on that side at least.
Yeah, I think it's best if we don't get into topics that are heavily debated at the moment within the community. But we'll leave it at that for now. But looking at some of the people going around here, it's the field is quite spread out. It's more of the lower end of the midfield is a lot closer than up at the front. A lot of people, I think it's from about, what is it, 6th place all the way through to 10th. There's only about 0.4 of a second in that. So quite close between them, and then further down the field as well, just a few thousandths of a second between a few different individuals. And
you should see a nice tight midfield then.
And just as we see Serradi go for a spin, and Giacomo Preti has now rejoined us.
Oh, great to hear. Hopefully he'll have enough time to 6.5 minutes, 6 3/4 minutes left to get a time. That's plenty of time to get a few laps and at least get himself on the board. You know, I'm sure he'd be happy with starting in the top half and starting from the back of the pack, being in this championship position.
Yeah, well, you mentioned going out and getting a lap on the board. It seems his lap time is actually still there. It's still present. He is now in 2nd place.
Yeah, I wonder if that was just a bug on my side, but still showing it on that board as well, unless he's just put that lap down, though it does look identical to the time he had posted before. Whether he could just be that consistent.
No, he's just coming out of the pit lane now, so yeah, it's definitely saved his lap time, which is quite interesting. I haven't really seen ACC do that before,
No.
But it's always the first for everything, I suppose.
It's a handy feature if that is the case, because you know the connection issue was just not likely to be his fault. So you know he fair and square put that time down, allows him to actually keep that time, and that qualifies him for the race in that position. It's quite a handy thing to have in there, I think. I don't think any would argue against such a feature.
No, I don't really see. I don't really see who would have anything to gain by that not being included in the sim. But if that is something that is now in the game, that is something that Kunos have cheekily thrown into the game, probably in the patch notes of the 1.2 update somewhere. But yeah, so nice to see him back, and he's in 2nd place. So he's gone out to presumably warm up and maybe see if he can go quicker than Alessandro Porta.
Yeah, I jumped on board with him now, doing all sorts of shapes as he now comes out to start another lap. Yeah, that was obviously his out lap, so now he's got himself enough time for, would you say, 2, possibly 3 laps?
I'd say, well, he's got enough time for 3 laps if they're clean. If he makes a mistake, probably maybe only 2, but well, it depends on how big the mistake is as well. But yeah, he's definitely got enough for 3 laps if he keeps it clean and on the road.
His car's making all sorts of funny shapes on my side here. The connection issue isn't 100% solved for him. Hopefully it clears up for him, but his car's lagging a fair bit on my screen. That's not quite enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, I think it was some of the other leagues yesterday had a few different server problems that were going on. I think it was the OTL league had a few people disconnect during qualifying, and it kicked them out of the race session yesterday. And there was a server issue as well, where servers weren't showing up on the list and all sorts. So there've been a couple of gremlins in the works in ACC as of late, but hopefully they are all fixed now, and hopefully whatever problems Giacomo Peretti has, hopefully they are going to get sorted out fairly soon, as the track temperature has just gone up by 1 degree.
Oh, hopefully that'll make all the difference for him. Yeah, as you said, ACC didn't have the best of starts, but as it's gone on, we're still, you know, really work hard on getting plenty of updates out to us guys, and really working hard to get these fixes done. So hats off to the guys at Kunos, you know, bringing us a great game.
Yeah, when ACC first came out, I think there was a lot of concern from the community, especially considering that the multiplayer wasn't quite what everyone expected it to be, and the handling of the cars wasn't quite, you know, what people were expecting either. There was a lot of concern that, you know, if this didn't go well, Kunos were going to bin it off and you know, put their focus back on Assetto Corsa, but you know, fortunately for us, they've kept at it. They've supported this game brilliantly, in my opinion. You know, with the free updates that we've had and all sorts of stuff, and with the future development of the Intercontinental Championship and the little teaser video they put out around Christmas time and New Year that said that after the Intercontinental Pack, there is even more incredible stuff planned for ACC. So we can only look to the future and hope to get some more amazing cars and tracks in ACC.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to see what else they're gonna give us. I'd like to see, definitely like to see some GT4s come in, because that really opens the door up for some multi-class, which would be that would be great fun to see. You know, there's definitely talks about it. I myself would be quite interested to try them out as well. Hopefully one day you'll be commentating on me.
Well, we can only look forward to those days, can't we? One of the other things that I was going to mention, because obviously Kunos have this partnership with SRO. SRO, of course, being the owners and management behind the Blockpond GT series. I think SRO have recently acquired GT2 as well, so there is the possibility for something like that to come to Assetto Corsa Competizione in the future. But like you said, with GT4s, if they were going to bring the GT4s to ACC, that would be very much a welcome addition, and if they did, that could maybe incentivize that there could be some British GT, Asian GT, and even American GT series and tracks added to ACC to really give us a good diverse range of circuits to race on.
Yeah, I think that's really the thing that will make this game, is bringing in that selection, wider selection of cars, which, like you say, hopefully there's something on the horizon. Possibilities for GT4. I didn't know about GT2. That would be great to see. Yeah, fingers crossed that they can bring us that sort of stuff, and that will really see the length of the game. Then we'll really see that will grow, and they can bring more and more into the game for us and improve on what they're already doing such a great job. Now there's, we see the last few guys now. I think, yeah, Alessandro has jumped in as well. So Alessandro has managed to take pole position with the 136.1, as you said. Nobody quite breaking the 135 barrier, but that's really good times from these guys, seeing what sort of conditions they had to contend with. And Peretti, it looks like he was able to keep his position with a 136.2, and row 2 will be headed by Antonio with a 136.5. Looks like the rest of the pack behind them are quite close. We have some really good packs of cars racing today. It should be really fun for all of you guys to watch back at home, and be really fun for us to commentate on as well.
Yeah, Fabian just mentioning that some drivers seem to be having issues finding the server. That is an issue that was present yesterday in ACC. So the servers weren't showing up on the list, and there was all sorts of stuff going on yesterday. But hoping that most of it's fixed now and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, 136.1, very good lap time by by Alessandro Porter, and hopefully can carry that into the race, because you can bet Giacomo Peretti is going to be right there alongside him going into turn 1, and he's going to want to keep up his run of good performances this season.
Yeah, he will indeed. It'll be the first couple of laps really that's going to tell, I think, how the first quarter of the race will go at least. You know, you're not going to want to push too hard on those first couple of corners with the risk of losing it so early on, but likewise you'll want to keep a good position for the rest of the race. Just 3.5 minutes to go while these guys make their final tweaks to setups and decide which way they're going to go for the race. We have a total of 23 drivers on the grid today. They'll have an hour's long to battle it out. What sort of time do we expect the guys to be racing to? Do we know the multiplier for today?
I do not know it myself. I think it's probably Stephen De Vust is probably one of the few people that do end up knowing that. But from what we've seen at Misano and at Barcelona, there hasn't really been much of a change in terms of time of day. So I don't think we have a multiplier. If we do, it's only a 2 times multiplier, because we haven't noticed any significant difference in levels of sunlight. So I don't think we'll expect anything too drastic today, but there is a mandatory pit stop, as there has been in the past 2 races. So that carries over into this race. So
well, that will add to things, especially with a track like Zolder, which isn't going to be the easiest to pass, especially with conditions as well. That gives people the chance to bring strategy into the gameplay, and you know, just that'll open up a few doorways with the like you say, the mandatory pit stop.
Yeah, Fabian just saying he doesn't think the Porsche Cup races have a multiplier. I didn't think they did either. I'll go with Fabian's word, because he's the man responsible for broadcasting the series usually. So if I'm wrong, Fabian's the man to blame. But yeah, looking at it here, the mandatory pit stops, the way it works is usually when you have a mandatory pit stop, it's around the middle point of the race that the pit window opens. What we've seen so far in this series is that the pit window opens 5 minutes before. Well, it opens 5 minutes after the race has begun and ends 5 minutes before the race ends. So you have 50 minutes during the race to pit whenever you feel like. You can do it around the midpoint of the race, or you can do it right at the start after about 5 minutes. It's your choice, really.
It's a nice big window then for these guys to make a choice, really. I guess it depends quite on how they feel at the start of the race, whether they feel they're going to get held up, and they may wish to try and get into a bit of clean air towards the back of the pack to possibly make those positions up later on. It's a bit of you've got to weigh up your risk, haven't you? Where you think you're going to gain the most. So yeah, that'd be interesting to see, and also for you and me to try and keep track on who's doing what at the current time. Did I just see a car disappear off the grid there? I hope that wasn't one of our front row guys, Peretti.
I am looking through the leaderboard, and unfortunately I do think it was Giacomo Peretti who was on the front row, who has just disappeared again. Looking down from the grid as well, we have lost whoever was in 16th place. It might have been...
You see the big gap there, yeah.
Yeah, there is a gap there, so we have lost someone else. I don't know who it is exactly at the moment, as the broadcasting timing sheet has not updated correctly. It's showing the wrong name in 16th place, so do forgive me while I do figure out who exactly that is, but we have lost Giacomo Peretti from the start of the race as they go on their formation lap.
Yeah, that's such a shame to see that he's having problems. It was clear that his connection wasn't the strongest. We're seeing a bit of lag with his car even after he came back, so it's a shame that he won't be able to get back in now. It's, looking forward to seeing how the rest of these guys will do as they go around on their formation lap. Care to place any wagers today, Ryan?
Oh, well, this is definitely a dangerous game that I've been playing with Simon in the Season 2 Championship. But no, I think if anyone's going to come away with a win today, I'm going to put my money on the poleman Alessandro Porta. He's third in the championship at the moment, and he has a really good chance today to get points over Giacomo Peretti, who has dominated the first 2 races of the season. And I don't think he is going to want to pass up those chances. Speaking of Giacomo Peretti, he has rejoined the session, and he is going to start at the back of the grid, but he will be here for the start of the race. So Giacomo Peretti, championship leader, starts at the back. He's got a massive job on his hands this weekend.
Well, at least he's here and he'll be able to actually give it a go, and you know, maybe, just maybe, that could pay out. He could go and do his pit stop straight away after 5 minutes have passed, and then just really just get his head down. He won't have any traffic in front of him, and you can see where he ends up. It'd be better than not being able to get points at all. So yeah, like you say, Alessandro, you wouldn't want to bet against him with the sort of times he's been putting out there, but knowing with all the points, you know, he could possibly get today, will he be a bit conservative? So I'll go with our second, who would now be our second place man, which is Antonio. I'm going to put my money on him today. He should have a nice clean start off the grid with no one in front of him. So just a few corners for these guys to go. Hopefully they'll start to back off and allow their guys behind to pull up and bunch the pack up in the double file now. Looking fairly clean on the out lap, a little bit spread out at the minute though.
We have had issues recently with ACC and getting some of the starts lined up properly. But we are green for the race here at Zolder in the wet, and going down into turn 1, Alessandro Porta has the inside line well and truly covered, and he does lead into the first corner coming up into turn 2. Now he's got a good gap on Serradi, so he probably won't be concerned about that. But further down the field, there are a few battles going on already through turn 3.
Yeah, great start by Alessandro. You say he took turn 1, nice and clean, got himself a good gap already, so he'll just get his head down now and see if he can break these guys to give himself an easier time today. It's looking nice and clear towards the back of the pack, so a good start for these guys today, especially with the conditions they're going to have to contend with.
Yeah, just seeing the 777 Porsche car there of Mr. Steve Banks, not quite able to get past Stefan Miller, the number 33 Porsche that was just ahead of him. But they are looking quite tentative on this first lap, and you can understand why. It's the first time they'll be up to racing speed with racing fuel loads in this session, I would imagine. So everyone's going to be quite careful about how they go around the first few laps here until they can get into a rhythm.
Yeah, unlikely they'll be quite up to temperature with the tyres and brakes at this point as well. So the last thing you want to do is be throwing it away this early on in the race. Plenty of racing to do. And a quick look back. Peretti managed to make up sort of 3-4 positions on the opening lap, so he knows he's got a lot of work to do, and he can't hang about. Be tracking his progress throughout the race today.
Yeah, started down in 22nd, he's up to 18th at the moment, so he has had a very good start from the back of the grid there, and he's going to want to keep going up as well. But he does have a gap now to those guys in front, and I'm just looking now, and my timing screen is telling me that Steve Banks is down in 17th. He was just up, as we have someone off at turn 2 or 3, I believe it was. We have someone sideways in the gravel, so there's already been someone off track on the second lap here. Yeah,
I suppose we were expecting to possibly see a couple of incidents in the first couple of laps as people familiarise themselves with conditions today. It's bound to happen with the conditions, so you hope that they manage to make it round okay the first couple of laps. It doesn't seem to be too much fighting on these, like you say, on these first couple of laps. Quite tentative, all trying to just feel their way into conditions and just get a feel for where things are. You know, what's possible. Not be pushing too hard as well. Just on board with Jan as he gets a little wide, the crest before you get towards the hairpin on the grass. A little touch of the barrier, but able to keep it pointing in the right direction. Just losing one position there to Mirko, was it, I believe?
Yeah, and I was just having a look at the replays, and it was Stefano Cinappi who was off at turn 2. The number 89 Porsche, he was well up towards the front, and he's unfortunately got a lot of work to do now, down in 18th place. But Giacomo Preti is up into 15th. He's had a very good start.
Yeah, he's really not wasted any time at all, is he? Just with 2 laps down, already got 6 positions up.
No, he hasn't wasted any time, and he's not going to waste any more time either. He's just got past someone else. He's up into 14th place now, Giacomo Preti. So he's definitely making all the moves he needs to do, and Alessandro Porta leads the way by just about a second to Antonio Serradi, but he's going to have to just drive his own race and hope he can keep it keep away from everyone else until the end.
That's it. He's not going to worry about what everyone else is doing, what the championship leader's doing. He's the one that's got to put his neck on the line, so to speak, and make up the positions where Alessandro's in the driver's seat. Really, he can just get his head down, drive his own race. So he hits his brake markers, don't do anything silly. He hasn't got to try and push for those extra fruit, a few tenths like Proetti has.
Yeah, we talked about mistakes being a massive factor in the results of these races, and that could very well be a big factor today for Giacomo Preti. He can't afford to make any mistakes, or he won't be gaining any good points, as now he goes past David Vinuesa for 12th place, and I think he's coming up behind 2 of his fellow esports teammates now, so he's going to be wanting them to gladly pull over for him. Not too sure what the team order situation is between all of them. But,
no, I'm sure we'll find out. We were on board for that, and he didn't seem to put up too much of a fight for him, so we'll soon see how the next team player plays this, whether he sort of opens the door politely for him, or he has to work for it. We shall soon see.
Yeah, but Giacomo Preti up to 11th place at the moment. Has done a very, very good job to go from 22nd up into 11th. Yeah, he's made up half the grid in well, just about 3 laps. So doing very well as he gets past another fellow teammate there. I think that was Daniele Flores he's just passed, and now he has Mirko Pomodori just ahead of him, and I don't think it'll be too long before he gets past him.
Alessandro is still out front, doing a good job, holding about a second over Antonio at the minute, but not sort of streaming away with it. Just comfortable 1.5 seconds at the minute now, by the looks of it. So he's doing everything he needs to at this point. We shall see how he manages to, if he can manage to keep hold of that as the race progresses. Been following with Stefan here, doing a good job holding off to Maxim, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. They're doing a good job of holding him off at the minute. He's been having a good sort of battle with him for the last couple of laps. Did a good job under pressure, holding on to P5.
Yeah, just to give you guys an example as well of what kind of lap times they are doing out here at the moment. Alessandro Porta out at the front set his personal best of a 1:38.3 on that previous lap. That was about 6 tenths quicker than Antonio Serradi, who he's now got a 2.3 second lead on. So Alessandro Porta starting to do everything he needs to do. Giacomo Preti, his fastest is a 1:38.7, previous was a 1:39.5. Compare that to people around him, he's about half a second quicker per lap than those around him.
Yeah, he'll find it slightly harder the more very way he makes it up the field though. Like you said, he's had a half-second advantage over some of these guys, but yeah, the next sort of pack is going to be getting around similar times. Before long, he'll have to start using his racecraft to really make these positions instead of just being down to pure lap time.
Yeah, he does have Frank Elzer in front of him at the moment, but once he gets past Elzer, he has quite the gap to Puntorieri. So yeah, he's got a lot of work to do once he gets up into 7th place. If he can get up into 7th place, he'll have to get his head well and truly down, as Alessandro Porta has now done a 1:37.8. So Alessandro Porta getting quicker, Antonio Seredi not so.
Yeah, he's really finding his feet now, isn't he, Porter? Really starting to pull a gap from these guys. It's a guy sort of 2nd, 3rd and 4th are having a little battle of their own. Isn't too many massive passes going on at the minute. I think people trying to just lean a bit of pressure on each other, see if they can push a mistake out of each other. It's Salvo in 3rd at the minute, holding off William for P4 in P4. Two guys have been fairly close so far, pretty much for the last 10 minutes. William not quite able to find a way past Salvo yet. Yeah, he keeps the pressure on. Hopefully he can find a way past or make a bit of an opportunistic move as they find a little. Oh, they find themselves in amongst the back markers, and unfortunately the back marker loses control on the edge of the track and actually takes William out. Such a shame for that to happen. We did catch that on camera, not his fault, nor of the back marker there. Just really unfortunate place to catch the back marker at that point.
Yeah, really unfortunate. It's never great to see, but this is one of the things we spoke about, the difficulty of this circuit. And especially in these kind of conditions with these kind of cars, it's almost a recipe for disaster. But yeah, it's been going fairly well so far. Only a couple of mistakes. Looking down here at the 13th place battle, Stefano Cinapi has Sebastian Zayak and Jan Vipapka behind him. He's having to work fairly well. Oh, there's contact there between, I think that was, yes, Sebastian Zayak and Stefano Cinapi. Zayak going into the back of Stefano Cinapi. And was that just a case of Zayak braking too late for the corner?
Yeah, we did manage to catch a little bit of that on the camera at the time. Such a shame, just a small snatch of the brakes possibly. Yeah, was just a little bit late for the guy in the black Porsche there. Back of Cinapi, as you say. Such a shame to see. It's been really clean so far from these guys.
And of course that'll be investigated after the race. The incident's being reported to our steward, so it'll be interesting to see what they make of that particular accident there. But looking down through the field, we have a couple of people in the pit lane already, Tarek Jeremy and Stephen De Vust, so I believe they may be serving their mandatory pit stop right now. But besides...
Yeah, quite early to go for the pit stop, but maybe they found themselves in a bit of a pack where they felt they were being held up somewhat. Best opportunity to take their pit stop now, hopefully get themselves a bit of clean air and possibly pay dividend towards the end of the race. This is the thing, is got to try and keep track of where they were when they came in.
Yeah, just looking here, Alessandro Porta is still leading at the front, 4.5 second lead right now over Antonio Seredi. Alessandro Porta doing exactly what he needed to do. He's kind of putting in a performance that's very similar to Giacomo Prati in the last two races, which is qualify on pole and well, drive off into the distance. and he's going to have to hope that he can keep that up for the course of the race. It's not going to be easy, not by any means, but he's doing everything he needs to do right now, as Giacomo Peretti is just under 2 seconds behind William Mazzolini for 6th place.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how far up he can make. If he can get his way up, you know, into the sort of podium positions, with still a decent amount left on the clock. I don't know what sort of lap times he's doing currently, but yeah, I mean, his last lap around, fastest lap of the race there, still he's 8/10 faster than our race leader currently. So could he win the race? Is it possible? Well, time will see. So it looks like he's up to 6th place now. Is that I see?
Yes, he is in 6th place. That is due to I think a couple of people have pitted, which is warranted him going up into 6th. He hasn't got past the number 53 Porsche yet, but he is right on the back of his tail, just about 3/10 behind.
And we're on board with him now. As of course the outside, as William goes on the defensive, but real late on the brakes by Peretti makes the pass look easy, and that's 5th place for him already, with only 15 minutes of this hour-long race already used. So there's plenty of time for him.
Yeah, just something I was noticing there. Radek Majowski has picked up a 30-second stop-go penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So that is going to be a massive, massive penalty for him to serve this early on in the race. He is in 19th place, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be at the back, well and truly at the back, once he serves that penalty.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to come back from a penalty that large with also a pit stop to be served as well. Whether he served it already, I'm not 100% sure.
And just something that I have noticed now, looking at the leaderboard, we didn't catch it on the strip when it happened, but Antonio Soredi is now down in 7th place, so he has made a mistake somewhere.
I very well noticed he has indeed. It's such a shame for Antonio. So he's doing fairly well up in P2.
Oh, just looking through the replays now. It's on the back straight. Yeah, on the back straight, just got one tyre on the grass and lost control of the car completely. Hit the barrier on the left-hand side. And that's unfortunately caused a significant amount of damage to his car. And he then, it was just shortly after that, he then spun again on the straight and had contact with the gold and black Porsche.
It's such a shame to hear, but it's such an easy thing to do in these conditions, even going as far as too much of the white line can cause a loss of traction. It's not easy for these guys. So I'm bored with Peretti at the minute, trying to have a go at Stefan Miller there, having a small look as he went down towards the hairpin, but a great exit for him on at the hairpin, and that's 4th position already from Peretti from the back of the grid. He's 17 minutes into the race now. Is the win possible? He's got the time left in the race, and he's got the lap time. It's whether he can deliver lap after lap to slowly bring that lap time down. As Alessandro has increased his pace somewhat with his best lap on the last lap around, 1:37.6. So Porter is still slowly finding time, and we're slowly eking that gap out to Peretti, making it harder and harder for him to come back. But definitely possibilities for Peretti to be on the podium at the end of this race.
Oh, definitely, and I think, well, barring an absolute disaster, if he does finish on the podium today, I think it will definitely be driver of the day. There's no doubt about that. But he's got about 20 seconds just a bit more than that actually between him and the race leader Alessandro Porta, so he does have a lot of time to make up. And with the pace that he's been doing at the moment, I don't think he has the pace to go for the win, but that can all change throughout the course of the race.
Yeah, that is true. He's been in a bit of traffic, been battling with a few guys in the last few laps. It'll be interesting to see if he's got anything left in the tank once he gets into some free air, and he can really start to get his head down.
Yeah, he's just about half a second behind Punterieri at the moment, and it was Punterieri that was involved in that little accident with Antonio Serradi just earlier on, so I don't know if Punterieri received any damage from that contact. I don't believe he did, but he does now have the championship leader right behind him and looking eager to get past.
Yeah, it sort of feels like a when, not if.
Looking down the field in the leaderboard, with only 3 people having served their mandatory pit stop, those being Stephen de Vust, Radek Majowski and Tarek and Jeremy. Majowski has cleared his stop-go penalty, and he finds himself in 20th place at the moment.
Glad he's managed to get that done in time. He's noticed the penalty, but you've got to say that's a race ender for him today. Hopefully he'll learn on that in the future. It's an easy track to do it on though, with the fast chicanes and the wet conditions. I'm sure they weren't intentional track cuts, but you've got to expect that in these conditions sometimes.
And looking now, Punterieri is closing in on second place Salvo Patinella, who is one of the new drivers we have here today. And Giacomo Preti has just dropped off the back of Punterieri ever so slightly. It was about 0.3 of a second behind him. The gap has now dropped to about 1.1 seconds, so is that Giacomo Preti just maybe settling into a bit of a rhythm now, maybe not taking as many risks as he has had earlier on in the race, or is he just starting to struggle to find pace now? Oh, and as I say that, there was a car in the middle of the road. It was Patinella in the middle of the road who had spun, and Giacomo Preti has now collided with the side of Patinella's car. He has gone up into 3rd place, but I'm pretty sure he'll have damage from that.
Yeah, that's a real shame, because those guys have been doing really hard, really well. Been pushing quite hard the first 20 minutes of this race. It's just a shame. Let's see if we can get the replay on that. I'm not seeing a replay for that particular contact.
Quite unfortunate there that we weren't able to capture that, but Giacomo Preti has got damage on the front end of his car. His bonnet is moving up and down quite violently. You can see a bit of a gap there as well at the front of the car, where he's definitely taken some front end damage, so that is going to affect his performance. And so you can just see Punterieri just going off slightly ahead of him in the distance, so a lot of people struggling now.
Yeah, that tyre wear has surely got to be coming into play with wets. Maybe taking a bit more from the tyre tread than the dries would usually do. That on top of the damage for Peretti, it can't be easy in these conditions, though he hasn't had his pit stop yet, so he could use that to his effect. Possibly get that damage corrected. It'll cost him a bit more time, but should give him a better, stable car for the remainder of the race.
And of course, all of the chaos going on around those places has, of course, meant that the race is starting to fall into the hands of Alessandro Porta, who is kept out of all of it. At the front, he has, I think it's about a 20-plus second lead on Puntorieri behind. Yesterday is 21.1 seconds ahead. So he's got quite a good gap as Puntorieri goes wide, and Giacomo Preti is now right on the back of him again.
Yeah, even with the damage, it's not. Moretti's still up for this race, isn't he? Still wants to make as many positions as he can, despite the obvious struggles he's going to be having with the car right now.
Yeah, it's important to remember Puntorieri did also get hit on the right rear when it was Antonio Serradi who had a spin. So Puntorieri is probably carrying some damage as well on his rear end. So both of them damage in different places, but it's still going to affect them equally. But yeah, looking here, Puntorieri going wide, Giacomo Preti starting to have a look, but he doesn't quite have the pace to go now as we come down to the first chicane. No, he's not going to try a lunge from there, way too far back, but
yeah, Puntorieri seems to be struggling for grip more than Proetti is, especially on the rear ends, through those first few turns. It's like the balance of that car is really swinging around for him.
And of course they have the lapped car of Jan Verpatka just in front of them. He's going to want to get out of the way fairly quickly because we've seen a couple of incidents with lapped cars already, and he does get out of the way very well there.
Yeah, well spotted. Unfortunately, he makes a mistake in the background there and goes off. Well done to keep clear of the leaders as they come through.
And as I've just switched to see from Alessandro Porta's perspective, I've just noticed Steven De Vust was turned around the wrong way through turn 2, but never mind that, because Giacomo Preti is looking to get past Puntorieri. He's trying to go around the outside. He's going to have the inside line into turn 2, and I think he's going to have this job done.
Yeah, it was great positioning by Puntorieri, but gifted to him by William, who had a massive kick of oversteer coming out of the last turn. Really lost his run on the start-finish straight, which sort of handed it to Proetti now. Just wonder whether that damage will cost him anything in a straight line. Didn't seem to affect him too much. Not to let William backpie too easy, but you can't think he's going to be able to make any better position than second today with how well Alessandro is driving.
Yeah, Alessandro Porta has just found himself in a bit of traffic at the moment that he's having to navigate his way through. So that has slowed him down at the moment, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see now. Does Giacomo Preti have the pace?
Just going to jump on board with Alessandro. He's going to show us how to control this animal in these lovely wet conditions, which I'm sure he's enjoying. You can see just from his driving, really small calculated inputs, no really fast inputs to driving. You've really got to caress the car. I mean, even in the dry conditions you can't be too aggressive with this car. In the wet even less so. Now coming up to the first chicane. Brakes nice and early. As you see, hardly taken any curb there through the chicane. Just well clear of the painted parts. Again, there on the back side of the dip, not full throttle at all through there, just feathering the throttle, making sure the car's nice and stable, easy through the chicane there. Yeah, really showing us how it's done.
You can see that in the dry here, usually you would take quite a bit of the painted curbing and even maybe some of the anti-cut curves that they have on the inside of the chicanes, but not here at all in the wet. You want to stay well away from those, as we just see Swardy in front making a mistake.
I'm sure there's been a small panic there for Porter, but it's get past unscathed and carry on.
And that, of course, gives Zecchio Mazzo up into 14th through Swardy's mistake, so he gains a place from that. But that last lap was a 1:39.8 for Alessandro Porter.
Yeah, I'm sure he would have lost a little bit of time being a bit cautious with the back markings that time around. But on average, he's been much faster than anyone else here, apart from Peretti. It's been very interesting to see how the race would have gone had Peretti started in his qualifying position. I'm sure we would have had a real fierce battle up front between these two. It's such a shame we didn't get to see that for us and the viewers.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to see, of course, but he has provided us with quite a lot of action today, coming from the back of the grid up to second place. And he was 7/10 slower than Alessandro Porter on that previous lap, but I think both of them encountered traffic, so it's kind of not very representative of what their true pace is on a lap-by-lap basis, as we are starting to see a few more people come into the pit lane now.
Yeah, I wonder how much time he's going to lose, because I'm sure he'll go to get that damage fixed during his pit stop.
Alessandro Porter a 1:38.9, so that's almost a second quicker than his previous lap time, in which he did have some traffic. So with Porter putting down a 1:38.9, it's going to be interesting to see as Giacomo Peretti comes up to the start-finish line now. What is his time going to be? It is a 1:38.7, a 2/10 quicker than Alessandro Porter. But unfortunately for Giacomo Peretti, if he's going to win this race, he has to go a lot quicker than that.
Yeah, and that's with damage though. It's such a shame he got that damage early on. Otherwise, I'm sure he had more time to show us. And, well, he could have at least made Porter think about the closing gap. But like you say, he's going to need to find a lot more if he's going to try and challenge Porter for the win. I think it's going to be quite hard now, being the gap is well over 20 seconds.
Yeah, and I was just watching on board with Peretti as you were talking about that, and he went slightly wide coming out of turn 3, made a bit of a mistake and lost some time, so that hasn't helped him at all. And yeah, it is a massive shame that he sustained that damage. Had he not sustained it, could he have had the pace to have a go at Porter? I mean, obviously, things can still happen throughout the race. Alessandro Porter could still make a mistake, and Peretti could still very much win this race. But I think Alessandro Porter, he knows what he needs to do. He needs to keep it clean, keep it calm, and not really cruise the car to the end of the race, but just keep it well planted on the road.
Yeah, that's right. He isn't going to do anything special to win this race. He needs to keep out of trouble and keep doing more of the same. Like you say, a few more drivers are heading towards the pits in a minute, so we just go past that halfway stage. I think the guys will all be happy for a fresh set of tyres, as we see more and more of them really struggling, especially with the rear of the car, which you would struggle with even in the dry conditions. Wet conditions being that extra level harder, especially on these painted curbs. You can see on the exit to the hairpin there, especially we've seen quite a few drivers making their way over to the barrier there. As thank you for that. Someone showed me just how that's done as we watch on board. Sorry that we had to see that, but just showing us how easy that is to do, even more or less in a straight line, trying to put the power down.
Yeah, this is it's one of those old school style tracks where the walls are never too far from the circuit and mistakes are quite severely punished. They are the kind of tracks that a lot of drivers say that they like because, you know, making a mistake is something you don't aim to do as a driver, and by making less mistakes you are a better driver. So circuits like this do definitely challenge the drivers a lot more than other tracks with miles of runoff, but they do mean that one slight mistake could end your race very, very easily.
Yeah, that's very true. It's a shame we don't see more of the tracks like this, Zolder and Brands, for example, where, like you say, there's no margin of error. So it teaches you to have better car control and keep consistent, which can only help to advance your driving and hopefully your position in the races.
Sebastian Zayek and Daniele Flores serving their mandatory pit stop at the moment. But those at the front yet to pit. It's going to be interesting to see when Alessandro Porta and Giacomo Peretti decide to come into the pit lane as Stefano Cineppi moves out the way for the race leader.
Yeah, traffic could really come into play because Peretti was 7/10 faster that last lap. So at that sort of pace, the gap could definitely come down over 25 minutes. And if Porter could see that gap coming down dramatically, that's when you tense up, and you know you could definitely push a mistake onto the leader that way. So you'd have to keep an eye on the gap. Part of that could be down to just catching a bit of traffic at the wrong time, which usually comes and goes between the drivers. Usually evens itself out fairly well amongst them all.
Yeah, I was just looking into that, and even now, Alessandro Porta did have a bit of traffic on that previous lap, and he sets a 39.0. Giacomo Peretti, don't think he encountered any traffic, goes to 38.6. So I think that is mainly the cause, really. It's depending on where you're catching the traffic, and Alessandro Porta at the moment seems to be getting the worst end of where he is catching the traffic. But I think he knows it'll sway back in his favour eventually, and you know maybe it's a good idea for Alessandro Porta to pit right now and maybe see if he can find a gap to slot himself into.
Yeah, that's very true. So just watching on board with Steve and William here, as they went side by side coming out after the hairpin, and unfortunately there was a bit of a William got pinched against the wall. He did manage to save it after a massive tank slapper, so tip my hat to him for a good save in tricky conditions. But yeah, just found himself in a ever-closing gap there, as he had been catching on Steve Banks a fair bit over the last couple of laps, by 2 seconds the lap before. So I don't know whether that's down to tyres, quite possibly, to have 2 seconds over the guy ahead. I'm sure that is, whether it could have been a mistake, I'm sure, by Steve, but with those sort of lap times, I'm sure to see William making his way back up the order towards Steve again. Keep an eye on that as time goes on.
Just looking now, Alessandro Porta, a 141.2, had a very, very slow lap last time round. I did see he made a bit of a mistake going through the second chicane, but nothing too major. So he's definitely lost time somewhere, and as you said, it could be a case now of the wet tyres starting to wear away just a bit, and I think honestly, if anyone has got worn tyres right now, it has to be Giacomo Peretti with all the overtaking he's done.
Yeah, he's the big one that's definitely put his tyres through a heavy workload. That's one way to put it for sure. He's done plenty of passing, and he's also carrying, well, he must be carrying some damage. So he's doing a stellar job to be being able to keep consistently almost now into the 38s, which I don't believe there's many other drivers doing. Antonio down in P11, he's doing mid 38s, but we did expect him to be further up the field. I believe it's a mistake that we saw him down in P11 now. I don't see anyone else currently doing those sorts of lap times, so a very impressive driver, Porterelli.
Yeah, and just looking now, Stefano Chinappi has come into the pit lane to serve his mandatory pit stop, which means that the only 3 drivers that are yet to serve a mandatory pit stop are going to be Alessandro Porta, Giacomo Peretti, and 3rd place Steve Banks.
Definitely a better lap for Porter that last time, as the 139, almost a 140 flat, but that not far off what Peretti has managed. So a little bit back on where he was, but still looks like he's definitely starting to struggle. Like you say, tyres I think are probably got to be giving up by now. I'm sure we'll be seeing him head straight into the pits before long. I don't know if the overall gap has come down between them, whether you can work that out or not.
Just waiting for the update at the moment between the sectors, but I do believe, yes, it has come down. It's now 14.8 seconds, so just under 15 seconds. It was about 10 to 15 minutes ago, it was about 20 seconds, so judging by that pace, Giacomo Peretti does not have enough time, but like I said, it depends on what happens with Porter. Pit stops can also be a factor because, well, we don't know if anyone's going to be refueling or not. Some people could be carrying enough fuel to go to the end, other people may have only half filled up, or just over half filled up, to maybe be a bit more lightweight on the start. So, yeah, we don't quite know the fuel levels that people run, but that can also be a factor.
Yeah, it's a shame we can't get that information. That would be quite interesting to see. We do have a little bit of information at our disposal. I mean, we can sort of see what sort of ABS levels they're running, I do believe. Obviously not traction control because they don't get them in the cup cars. But I think that's about it, isn't it? Possibly a fuel map.
Well, judging by the displays that I have in front of me, looking on board with Alessandro Porta, we don't even get to see the engine map, so unfortunately not. Yeah, not that much information available to us, but one thing we do know is that both Alessandro Porta and Giacomo Peretti have to come in for a mandatory pit stop at some point, and that some point is going to be sooner rather than later, because they only have about, I think it's about 13 minutes left until that pit window closes.
Yeah, by the looks of it, he might be trying to go as long as possible, do the race on one set of tyres, because you would think if he was going to do a tyre change, he would have done that at the halfway stage to get the most out of both sets.
What could, I was just about to say, sorry, what could be important to note is that could Giacomo Peretti be waiting for Alessandro Porta to pit so he can pit at the same time to make sure that Porta's tyres aren't any fresher than Peretti's?
Yeah, that's very true. He could quite possibly be waiting, and I'm sure we'll find out quite soon, over the next 10 minutes or so. Porter's definitely found himself a big bunch of traffic over the last few laps, and surprised to not possibly see him come in, seeing that he had sort of 3 cars to get past over the course of the next few laps. That's probably the optimum time to try and do it, to reduce time loss getting through the cars. But no, he's decided to stay out, and he's made his way past the first couple, and just one more of the number 11 William, I do believe. I'm sure hopefully he will pull over and let him by. So Porsche's giving him a little flash there just to remind him that he's behind. Though I wouldn't have thought too visible with these wet conditions. As a back marker has just taken our leader out. Oh, what a shame! I didn't catch what driver that was. I believe it was driver in the 12th position. That would have been Mikal. Yeah, big slap of oversteer coming out of the last corner, put him into the rear of Porter. Now, Porter has managed to keep going. He did hit the concrete wall at the start-finish line, so hopefully he hasn't incurred too much damage. So it does look slightly damaged on the bumper now. What is that going to do to the overall lap time? The gap between the two of them. Is that Proetti I see behind him?
Yes, it is. Proetti is just 2.8 seconds behind him now, so the massive lead that Alessandro Porta had, that he built up with staying out of trouble, has now disappeared, and he has the championship leader just about 2.5 seconds behind him now, so it's game on now between these two.
Like you said, anything could happen. You know, you can be clean and you can keep yourself out of trouble, but you can't guess what's going to happen around you. You've just got to pray that nobody collects you. It's really unfortunate because he has done such a great job up to this point, but now we'll see how he is under pressure, because Proetti has been the quicker of the two drivers, so without a doubt Proetti is going to close up on the back of Porter, and we will soon see how he will deal with that pressure. So I'm looking forward to a bit of spice towards the end of the race. I don't know about you.
Yeah, and this is going to be interesting to see now, because Giacomo Proetti, well, he has first place in his sights. He's got the psychological advantage, he's got the pace, he's in a rhythm at the moment, which Alessandro Porta is definitely not. He's having to get back into a rhythm. So Giacomo Proetti has everything going in his favour, but have to remember, Giacomo Proetti is not invincible. He made a mistake at Misano on the first lap, which did cost him a lot of time, and it took a while for him to make his way back up to P1. He's got to make sure he doesn't make any mistakes himself and take himself out of the race.
Yeah, that is very true. He's got to keep his head, seeing that first place is so close, with not a lot of time to make that pass. But can you imagine what that would do for the rest of his championship campaign, coming from last on the grid to win the race? It's a possibility for sure now.
Yeah, just looking there, the lap time is fairly identical. Only about half a tenth of a second between both of them on their previous lap times. So Alessandro Porta, despite the small accident, has managed to get himself back into a competitive lap time. But of course, these two do still have to pit. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah, you also got to take into consideration the traffic. You know, they may not fall back into traffic after the pit stop, but it's probable that they will incur some traffic before the end of the race. And
sorry, just interrupt you. Giacomo Proetti is in the pit lane.
Right, so we shall see now. Will Porter react straight away? We shall soon find out.
Yeah, this is going to be quite interesting now. How does Alessandro Porta play this? He does have to pit soon, regardless. But how is this going to affect Giacomo Proetti? Because not only does he have to serve his pit stop, he has to make sure he doesn't come out behind anyone. You know, any back markers or anything that could cause him some problems. He's got to make sure he falls into a nice little gap where he can keep his pace up.
Yeah, that is very true. But same for Porter, that he doesn't come across any back markers now. It's looking pretty clear ahead of him for now, because he doesn't want anyone slowing him down at this crucial point. He's got a few up ahead, but they're, you know, the good 6-7 seconds up ahead, so he should be alright for at least a few more laps before he has to contend with passing the back markers.
Yeah, and of course, one of the things Alessandro Porta can count on is that his tyres are still very warm. Giacomo Peretti's are going to be stone cold as he comes back out onto the circuit. And can Alessandro Porta, you know, can he take advantage of those warm tyres that he still has and maybe stretch out a few more seconds on Peretti before he has to pit? Or will the new tyres of Giacomo Peretti just prove too strong for Alessandro Porta?
That'd be the thing. Will they risk the tyre change, being that you'll lose that much time getting them changed?
And Porter is in the pit lane.
Right then, so we shall soon see who has made best of the strategy. So it's the current gap between them is coming down, isn't it?
Yeah, Peretti's just come out of turn 8, going through turn 9 at the moment. He's only got the chicane turn 10 left to go. Alessandro Porta is rolling again in the pit lane.
Yeah,
and he is towards the end of the pit lane.
Start-finish straight now.
And Alessandro Porta has let go of the speed limiter. He is well and truly rolling now. He's going to come back and rejoin onto the track. He's definitely going to be ahead of Giacomo Peretti, but has he stretched the gap at all?
He is also, Peretti's now had a lap to just warm up to conditions as well, so he's going to be able to sort of carry on the pace that he's already had from the last lap, where Porsche's going to have come in, tyres and everything's going to go a little bit cold. He may be a little tentative in his first out lap. He's definitely seemed to have gained a bit of time over Peretti.
It's
through the
4.1 seconds. So he's gained about 1.5 seconds through having Giacomo Peretti pit first. So that has helped Alessandro Porta, but like you said, will the warm-up tyres now of Giacomo Peretti allow him to catch up enough? But Giacomo Peretti knows that he doesn't have a lot of time if he's going to make use of those warm tyres compared to Porter's cold tyres. He's only got about a lap and a half to do it.
Yeah, he's been pushing really hard, and you can see that with the car really squirming on the back end. He's trying to drag everything possible out of this thing. And, I don't know whether he's got enough left in the car to really challenge for the win today.
Yeah, just looking at it now, Alessandro Porta goes over the line. Here comes Giacomo Peretti. The gap is 4.6 seconds. The gap has gone up on that lap, surprisingly, with Alessandro Porta's cold tyres. So maybe due to traffic, but Alessandro Porta on cold tyres has managed to gain half a second.
Yeah, it wasn't the cleanest of laps from Peretti from what I saw. The car is squirming around quite a lot, so just doesn't quite have anything left in the car possibly to answer the pace of Porta.
Yeah, he's losing more time now, 5.4 seconds. Giacomo Peretti is, well, he's losing time to Alessandro Porta. Alessandro Porta was held up in the middle of the first chicane there as well, so if Peretti's losing time compared to Porta, well, Porta is being held up in traffic, that doesn't bode well for Peretti. But this is all going the way of Alessandro Porta at the moment.
Yeah, it definitely seems as if possibly being out front all this time, and we saw how controlled he was during the first sort of 3/4 of the race, possibly allowing him to just conserve that tyre towards the end. And, you know, that's really paid dividend now, being that he's still got some grip left to just ease that gap out when he really needed it. So looking at the last lap times, 7/10 in the favour of Proetti. So is there one last hurrah from Proetti? We shall soon find out.
Yeah, he's definitely pushing as hard as he can. 3.9 seconds separating the two of them. Just 7 minutes to go. Well, it's gone up to 4.4 seconds now. So the gap fluctuating ever so, but it seems to have fallen the way of Alessandro Porta when everything's been going against him in terms of traffic through the first 3 quarters of the race. In the last quarter of the race, when he's needed it the most after he had his gap so unfortunately taken away from him, it is starting to go his way.
Yeah, whoever gets it in the end, yeah, well deserved either way. You know, they've both fought really hard so far in this race, with Porter just doing the job from the front, keeping it nice and controlled all race long, and Proetti going all out to come from the back. And even if he does finish second today, which you could possibly see happening, it's been a brilliant second place, and you know, you can't take anything away from him.
No, he's definitely been driver of the day today. That's completely out of the question. You know, almost impossible to argue to go from 22nd on the grid all the way up to second. Incredible achievement. Could have maybe had first place, but it seems like Alessandro Porta might have just done enough to keep in first place.
That's not Porter's fault though. It's unfortunate for him, the contact, the back marker, but that sort of thing happens in racing, especially with these conditions, and sometimes you get unlucky and sometimes it goes in your favour. That's the way that racing comes around.
Yes, you mentioned it before though, this race, how different could it have been if Giacomo Proetti had started second on the grid?
I'd have favoured him to win it, I think.
How very different this race could have played out, but of course, unfortunate connection issues meant that he did have to start at the back, and that has played into Alessandro Porta's hands very well. And of course, Alessandro Porta will be hoping that this can be the start of a few good performances for him to try and take the championship lead away from Proetti.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm sure his thoughts will be on this race at the moment, but with plenty of races still to go in the championship, you know, the possibility is always there for him. So we have seen that gap is coming back down again. More even over the last lap, but lap 4 was a half second towards Proetti's favour.
Yeah, it seems to be fluctuating ever so slightly lap by lap.
But with 4 minutes remaining, I think time is fast going to be running out for him now.
Yeah, and just a little bit of information for you here. Not that it will matter much. You may have noticed that the rain has got heavier since we began the race.
Yeah, I have wondered.
Definitely looks like that. Well, I can tell you that in half an hour's time, not that we'll see it, there is a thunderstorm expected. So
I'm glad they're not doing an hour and a half race then today.
We've missed the worst of the weather, it seems, but yeah, it's definitely been tricky out there today for everyone. I don't think anyone's had an easy time of these conditions, definitely not in these cars. It would be easier in a normal GT3 car from the Black Pan series, but they like the challenge of these little Porsche Cup cars. As someone said in the last race of the first season, you know, these drivers, they like the abuse that these cars give them in terms of handling. Well, it seems they do, but they offer a great deal of action for us.
Yeah, although it's been tricky conditions for them, it's been great to watch, and there's been some really good battles throughout the field. A bit of unluckiness for some, but you know, that favours some, and that that'll swing back in others' favour on other days. Like as you said, that gap has fluctuated, and it's back in I think Porter's favour, because there was a back marker between them during that last lap, which I think originally allowed. Oh, there's a spinning car across the track. Thankfully for Porter, it didn't continue all the way across the track. That would have been almost deja vu for him there, and that would not what he want the last lap. And another car across the track managed to get out of the way for him. And there's a mistake by Porter over the crest into the wall. He saves it. He has managed to keep going in a straight line. Oh, this is tense times with just possibly one more lap after this to go.
Yeah, Giacomo Peretti was caught in some traffic there as well. That meant that he'd lost time as well. Both of them very, very tricky situations. You could tell the weather's definitely got worse now. Yeah, heart in mouth moment for Alessandro Porto. Probably thought that was going to be the end of the race for him.
Yeah,
as he lost it over crest, and would have been a terrible way to end the race. But he does have one more lap to go. It's 3 seconds between him and Giacomo Peretti.
And what a nervous lap this will be for him, knowing what just happened, seeing 2 drivers spin ahead of him, spinning himself into the wall, being ever so lucky that's put him back out into the track. He could have so easily spun off into the grass there, and that would have been the race win. Now it's the last lap. He's led the way all the way. Can he do it for one more lap? The money's on.
Yeah.
I believe he can bring it home. He just needs to keep calm and collected. There's another car facing the wrong way for him to contend with.
Alessandro Porto must be thinking that every driver out on the server is going to end his race the way this is going at the moment. But nevertheless, he has managed to not crash into anyone yet, but he's definitely got Giacomo Peretti in his rear view mirrors. Peretti was 3.4 seconds faster on the previous lap due to the mistake that Porter made. 2.3 seconds now as we head into the second sector.
Yeah, thankfully not any back markers that he should catch that this lap, which will be a bit of a relief for him, that he won't have to navigate any other cars. It could cause him an upset on the last lap. Just a few corners to go now. It's the last time up to the hairpin for these boys. Nice and easy on the power, Porter.
Yeah, Peretti's so close now, 1.5 seconds, but I think Alessandro Porter has done enough as he comes up to the last couple of corners here. Just carefully navigates his way through, not too hasty on the accelerator, and he comes out of the final corner, and it will be Alessandro Porter to win here at a very rainy Zolder.
A great second place to Peretti. Got to say, driver of the day from the back of the field to second place. There was a chance for a win there, but he did. The favour wasn't towards him on this day.
Yeah, brilliant race out there, and just watching at the moment, I think it's going to be Puntorieri who comes home for 3rd place. So a good bag of points for him. Alessandro Porter's win does of course mean that he will move up to 2nd in the championship, but Giacomo Peretti's 2nd place will keep him in the lead of the championship for now.
Well, it's been a great race. I don't know about you, Ryan. I've quite enjoyed watching these guys. Really have to work hard to fight these cars around here today.
Yeah, it's been a good race. It's been some pretty harsh weather, which we seem to have avoided the worst of, but everyone seems to be finishing safe and sound in the end. Some good points on the board for a lot of people, and yeah, definitely a very exciting race, especially towards the end. You know, we didn't really know how it was going to play out with about 15 minutes to go, but it ended up being a lot closer than we thought it would.
yeah, it easily could have gone either way there towards the end, and both deserved it, though only one can get it on the day. And Porter, well-deserved win from the front, drove very, very well for the majority of the race. It was only towards the end where, as you can see, the conditions really starting to come down and worsen now that it got that little bit more tricky for the drivers, and caught them out on a few occasions, but he managed to keep the thing pointing in the right direction and bring it home for the race win.
Yeah, it was quite exciting in the end. I hope everyone tuning in tonight was thoroughly entertained, because I have to say I think we were, for sure. But do remember that this Friday, 17th of January, we do have the Friday Championship at Misano. So that's going to be well and truly exciting. We've had a different winner every single race in the Friday Championship. So that's definitely one to look forward to. And, well, would you believe it? There's been rain here at Zolder, and there is apparently rain at Misano as well. So if you enjoyed the wet weather racing here tonight, you will definitely want to tune in on Friday.
Yes, indeed, that should be interesting, though. A little bit more room to breathe around that circuit than today here at Zolder. Right, well, that has been great fun for round 3 of the Porsche 911 Cup at Zolder. So that should be goodbye from myself, Jake, and goodbye from Ryan.
Yeah, I'll see everyone on Friday for the race at Misano, and of course we'll be back in 2 weeks' time for the next Porsche Cup race on the 27th of January. So looking forward to that already.
Yeah, me too. Alright then, thank you guys, and we will catch you on the other side. Bye bye.